House. I am glad you are joining us as we move into Module 7, Cryptography Part 5. In this module, we'll build on the cryptography basics we covered earlier and explore some of the most critical ideas in cybersecurity. These concepts are the building blocks of security. They are essential to understanding how and why we protect data, networks, and systems. By the end of this module, you will have a solid grasp of these core ideas, giving you a strong foundation as we continue into more advanced topics. So let's dive in and continue mastering the fundamentals of cybersecurity. We are embarking on a journey into the fascinating world of public key infrastructure, or PKI. I want you to always remember and think of PKI as the system that builds trust and security in the digital world. It allows us to communicate and share information safely online. Public key infrastructure, PKI, digital signatures. You might be wondering, what exactly are digital signatures and why should you care? Well, let's find out together. Digital signatures. All right, cyber students. Now that we know hash functions, as discussed in Module 6, let's talk about digital signatures. These are electronic versions of your handwritten signature. Imagine you sign a contract. Your signature serves a few important purposes. Purpose number one, it proves it's you who signed it. Number two, it ensures that the contract hasn't been changed after you signed it. Number three, you cannot deny later on that you signed it. That is non-repudiation. Digital signatures work similarly, but they use your private key to create a unique stamp on a digital document or message. Here is how the process works step by step. Step number one, hashing. First, we create a message hash. Remember, it's like that magic fingerprint we talked about earlier. Step number two, encryption. Then we encrypt this hash using your private key. This encrypted hash is your digital signature. It's like locking the fingerprint with your unique key. Step number three, verification. Anyone with your public key can verify your signature. They decrypt the signature using your public key and compare it to the hash of the original message. If they match, they know two things. One, the message hasn't been changed. Two, that it really came from you. Now, in the world of PKI, digital signatures are super important for ensuring authentication, integrity, and that non-repudiation we talked about. Authentication. It's like having a digital ID that verifies your identity. Integrity. It ensures that the message hasn't been tampered with during transmission. Non-repudiation. It prevents you from denying that you sent the message in the first place. This is crucial for sensitive communications like online banking or legal documents. It prevents someone from forging a message or pretending to be someone else. Now, here is a pop quiz question for you viewers. Why do you think it is important to use your private key to create the digital signature and not your public key? I will give you a few moments to think about this. The reason is, if you used your public key, anyone could create a fake signature. Using your private key ensures that only you can create a valid signature, proving it came from you. Before we finish off this lesson, let's briefly discuss Digital Signature Standard. The Digital Signature Standard, or DSS, is a US federal government guideline that outlines approved digital signature algorithms. It is issued by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, with the most recent version published in 2023 as the Federal Information Processing Standard, or FIPS 186-5. This document provides in-depth details on using digital signatures within federal government systems. What you need to know is that the Digital Signature Standard supports 3 key digital signature algorithms for use by the US government. Algorithm number 1, RSA, Reversed Shamil-Alderman Algorithm. The DSS allows using RSA as outlined in the American Standard X9.31 and Public Cryptography Standard, or PKCS, number 1 for digital signatures. Algorithm number 2 is the ECDSA, or Elliptic Curve Digital Signature Algorithm. The DSS endorses ECDSA for use in digital signatures, following the guidelines in the American National Standard X9.62. Our algorithm number 3 is EDSA, Edwards Curve Digital Signature Algorithm. The DSS also permits using EDSA as specified in the NIST Special Publication 800-186. All of these algorithms are considered secure and are approved for creating and verifying digital signatures. To summarize, remember, digital signatures are like your unique digital stamp of approval, providing authenticity, integrity, and non-repudiation in the digital world. They are an essential part of PKI and help us build trust in online communication. Digital certificates. Okay, class. Now that we know what digital signatures are and why they are essential, let's focus on digital certificates and how they are created. Imagine you're sending a letter. A digital certificate is like an envelope with your official ID stamped on it, showing the recipient that the letter came from you. It proves your identity, just like an ID card. Think of a digital signature as the wax seal you place on the letter. The seal doesn't just show that you sent it, it also proves that no one has opened or changed the letter along the way. It guarantees the content is exactly as you wrote it. Both the ID, digital certificate, and the seal, the digital signature, rely on a secure system called Public Key Infrastructure, PKI, to make sure they are trustworthy and can't be forged. One proves who you are, and the other proves what you said hasn't been altered. Now, let me give you another example. Imagine you wanted to travel to another country. You need to get a passport, right? You fill out all the application and provide proof of your identity, like your birth certificate, and then the government issues you a passport. Now, how do we create a digital certificate? Creating a digital certificate is a similar process like getting a passport. Number one, key pair. First, you generate a public-private key pair. Remember, it's like having a key to a special mailbox. That's CSR. You create a certificate signing request, CSR, which is like your passport application. It includes your public key and some information about you, like your name and address. Step number 3, certificate authority. You send this CSR to a certificate authority or CA. They are like the passport office. They verify your identity to make sure you are who you say you are. Step number 4, verification. This process might involve checking your documents or contacting you to confirm your information. Step number 5, certificate issuance. Once the certificate authority or CA is satisfied with your identity, they issue you a digital certificate. This certificate is like your digital passport. It links your public key to your identity and is signed by the certificate authority or CA, like an official stamp of approval. Now, in the world of PKI, this whole process is called digital certificate management. It's like the system for issuing and managing those digital passports. The certificate contains essential information like your public key, the validity period, like an expiration date, and your identity details. Sometimes a certificate must protect multiple identities like websites under the same company. In that case, it uses something called a subject alternative name or SAN to list all those identities. And I want you to remember, anyone can verify your certificate by checking the certificate authority's signature. It's like checking your passport's official seal to ensure it's genuine. Now, dear students, here is a pop quiz question for you. Why do you think it is important for the certificate authority or CA to verify your identity before issuing a certificate? It is because if they didn't verify your identity, anyone could get a certificate claiming to be someone else, and that would defeat the whole purpose of trust and security. So I want you to remember, digital certificates are like your digital passports, allowing you to establish secure online connections. They are a crucial part of PKI and help us build trust in the digital world. Revoking a digital certificate. All right, class. We have discussed how digital certificates are like digital passports, giving you access to secure online communication. But what happens if you lose your passport? It gets stolen or no longer needed. In the real world, you would report your lost or stolen passport to the authorities, and they would cancel it. This way, this prevents someone else from using your passport to impersonate you. Similarly, a digital certificate can also be revoked if they are compromised or no longer needed. It's like hitting the cancel button on your digital passport. One might ask, why revoke a certificate? Well, there are a few reasons, but here are the two most common and important reasons why it might be necessary. Reason number one, compromised key. If your private key is compromised, meaning someone else can access it, your certificate must be revoked immediately. It's like someone stealing your passport and potentially using it to impersonate you. Reason number two, no longer needed. If a certificate is no longer needed, like when it expires or you no longer use the websites or services it's associated with, it can be revoked to keep things a little bit tidy. Now, how do we check if a certificate has been revoked? There are two main ways. Certificate Revocation List, or CRL. This is like a list of cancelled passports. The certificate authority lists all the revoked certificates. You must download this list to verify a certificate and check if it is on that list. It is secure but slow, like checking a long list every time you want to travel. Online Certificate Status Protocol, or CSP. This is a faster and more efficient way to check a certificate's status. It's like having a real-time online system that tells you instantly if a certificate is valid or revoked. And to make things even faster, we have something called certificate stapling. It's like having a copy of the certificate status attached, so you don't have to check online every time. Now, here is a pop quiz question for you viewers. Why is it important to revoke a digital certificate if the private key is compromised? The correct response is that if the private key is compromised, someone else could use it to impersonate the certificate holder and access sensitive information. Revoking the certificate prevents this. So I want you to remember, just like passports, digital certificates can be revoked to prevent misuse. This is an integral part of PKI and helps maintain the security and integrity of online communication. Certificate subjects. All right, class. We have talked about digital certificates and how they are like digital ID cards. But exactly who are these ID cards issued to? It's not just websites. Digital certificates can be issued for all sorts of things. For example, websites. Of course, this is the most common use. Websites use certificates to secure your connection when browsing, shopping, or banking online. Certificates are issued to individuals. People can have digital certificates too. It's like having a digital ID card that verifies your identity online. Certificates can be issued for devices, to the devices. Like, for example, your laptop, smartphone, or Wi-Fi router can have a digital certificate, which is like giving each device its unique ID. Certificates can be issued for email addresses. You can even have a certificate for your email address, ensuring that your emails come from you. Certificates can be issued for software. Software developers use certificates to sign their software, so you can be sure it's coming from a trusted source and it hasn't been tampered with. It's like having a digital ID card for anything that needs to be identified and trusted online. Now, let's dive deeper into how certificates identify their owners. Each certificate has a subject, which is the entity it identifies. For a website, the subject might be website's domain name, like www.example.com. For an individual, it might be their name and email address. For example, LinkedIn's certificate shows that the subject is www.linkedin.com and that it is owned by LinkedIn Corporation. The certificate also shows who issued it and who verified it, like a chain of trust. You might also see some strange numbers in a certificate. These are called object identifiers, or OIDs. They are like unique codes that identify different parts of the certificate. You don't need to memorize them, but knowing they exist is promising. Now, sometimes there are security concerns about fake certificates. Imagine someone creates a fake certificate for a website to trick you into giving them your personal information. To prevent this, we have something called certificate pinning. It's like pinning a certificate to your browser so that if it changes unexpectedly, you get a warning. It's an extra layer of protection against those sneaky attackers. Now, here is a pop quiz question for you viewers. Why do you think it's important to be able to identify different types of certificate subjects? The reason is that different subjects require different levels of verification and trust. A website certificate needs to prove ownership of the domain, while an individual certificate might need to verify their identity through documents or other means. So remember, digital certificates are like digital IDs for all sorts of things in the online world. They help us establish trust and ensure secure communications by linking a public key to a verified identity. Certificate types. All right, class. We have talked about how digital certificates are like digital ID cards. But just like there are different types of ID cards in the real world, there are different types of digital certificates too. These certificates offer different levels of trust, depending on how thoroughly the certificate authority verifies the subject's identity. It's like having different levels of security clearance. Some certificates provide essential assurance, while others require extensive background checks and verifications. There are different types of certificates, starting with the basics. Number one, domain validation (DV) certificates are like basic ID cards. The certificate authority only verifies that the requester only owns the domain name. It's like checking if you have the right to be in a particular place, but not really confirming who you are. These are easy to get but offer the lowest level of trust. Number 2, organizational validation or OV certificates. These are a step up from DV certificates. The certificate authority verifies not just the domain ownership, but also the organization behind the website. It's like checking your ID card and also confirming that you work for the company you claim to work for. These offer a higher level of trust. The third one, extended validation or EV certificates. These are the most trustworthy certificates. The certificate authority goes through a thorough verification process, checking the organization's legal documents and physical existence. It's like getting a background check and a security clearance. These certificates provide the highest level of assurance. But that's not all. There's another type of certificate called wildcard certificate. Now, what is the purpose for a wildcard certificate? Wildcard certificates are special because they can secure multiple subdomains under a single domain. It's like having one ID card that works for different departments within a company. For example, a wildcard certificate for LinkedIn could secure www.linkedin.com or mail.linkedin.com and jobs.linkedin.com. It's a convenient way to secure multiple domains without needing separate certificates for each one. Now, there are some limitations of wildcard certificates. Wildcard certificates have limitations. They only work for one level of subdomains. So they can't secure something like api.images.linkedin.com. Now, here is a pop quiz question for you viewers. Why do you think it is important to have different types of certificates with different levels of trust? The quick answer is that different websites and organizations have different security needs. A small blog might only need a DV certificate, while a bank or a government website would need an EV certificate to provide the highest level of assurance to its users. So I want you to remember, just like there are different types of ID cards for different purposes, there are different types of digital certificates with varying levels of trust. Understanding these types of certificates help us choose the right certificate for our needs and ensures secure communication online. Certificate formats. Okay, class, we have talked about different digital certificates, but did you know they also come in different formats? It's like having different ways to package the same gift. Just like your computer has different file types like .docx for Word documents or .jpg for images, digital certificates have different formats too. Some of these formats are binary, which means they are made up of ones and zeros as the language computers understand. If you try to open a binary certificate in a text editor, it will look like gibberish. DER is a common binary format, often used with file extensions such as .der, .crt, or .cer. PFX, this is another binary format, commonly used in Windows systems with extensions like .pfx or .p12. But we also have text-based certificate formats. These are human-readable, meaning you can open them in a text editor and understand what is inside. PEM is a text-based version of the DER format. It's often used with .pem or .crt extensions. P7B. This is a text-based version of the PFX format, mainly used in Windows systems with a .p7b extension. Now, I know all these acronyms and file extensions can be a bit confusing. It's like learning a new language. But don't worry, the main thing to remember is that certificates come in different formats, some binary and some text-based. Binary formats, DER and PFX. These are like secret codes that only computers can understand. Text-based formats, PEM and P7B. These are like written messages that can be read and understood. Here is a pop quiz question for viewers. Why do you think we need different certificate formats? Why not just use one format for everything? That is a great question, isn't it? Different formats have different purposes and advantages. Binary formats are often more compact and efficient, while text-based formats are easier for humans to read and understand. So this is what I want you to remember. Just like we have different file types for various documents, digital certificates come in different formats to take care of different needs and systems. Understanding these formats helps us navigate the technical world of PKI and ensures that we can use certificates effectively for secure communication. Module 8, Domain 1 quiz is coming up next. This is our first domain quiz. In this module, we will test what we have learned in Domain 1 before moving on to Domain 2. I thank you for watching and see you in Module 8.